Damn cats. They're literally on, there's like a little, I think you've seen it. There's a little cat tree over here. Fighting right now. I'm gonna have to go about over there again. All right, let's try this again here. When your wrench slips and you bust your knuckle. Ooh, yeah. You just gotta suck it down. Just hold on to it. Got a nice little scar here. Handsaw. Yeah. It sucks, dude. After a while, after a few knuckle busts, they'll callus up. They'll swell up. Me emerging from the clothes rack at Kmart after my mom had my name announced over the intercom. Ooh. You're looking for... I don't think we ever went that far. I don't think my mom ever had to call the intercom, but I remember hiding in those racks all the time. It's like it's a perfect playground. Play hide and seek in there all day. This show cannot be real.
Oh my God.
2 weeks after I had given birth, Connor took Liam to our pediatrician. The doctor is testing his oxygen levels. And the doctor's like, these are scarcely low. Like, you need to take him to hospital. You need to take him to the emergency room right now. So Connor rushes Liam to the emergency room. The first couple of days were a bit scary, but then he was getting better. And so I'm thinking, like, let's, do something fun. And I made a video.
What the? Hold on.
In that video, I was using my child's sickness for clout and for attention.
I would say, yeah. Your baby just got diagnosed. Was that the actual thing? No. No. Was that the actual dance at the end there? Your baby just got diagnosed with RSV and you're doing some little happy dance? Speaking of weird, that's weird. Is that Mormon show? I have to say this in defense of my Mormon friends. I've seen a couple episodes of that shamefully. I truly have. Watch it with my wife. The people on that show are nothing like the Mormon families I know in real life. I just have to say that, okay? I just have to say that. Because these people, I don't know, it seems a little scummy what they're doing with this show. That's all I'm saying. And that kid just got diagnosed with RSV. Woo, woo, woo. That's scummy as well.
What's an obscure movie line that you say in your everyday life that no one gets?
When the f did we get ice cream?
Scratched in broad daylight. Awesome movie. Love it. Now that we are coming back to sanity and jokes are legal again, we should make a number 2 version of that. The Ringer number 2. If you've never seen it, go watch it. Shout out to all the truckers leaving bottles of apple juice for thirsty vegans. God bless you all. God bless you all driving across this country, making this country run. You are the lifeblood of this country, and you're altruistic. You're looking out for the vegans, too. I love it. You ready to go? Do you have your shoes on? Toddlers. It's always on the wrong foot. Always. And then you try to change it, they freak out. It's like, oh, fine. Keep it on the wrong foot. Let's go. How much can you actually save doing it yourself? Oh! Oh! Oh, no! Oh, shit! Get the kids... Get the cradle out of there, dude. You don't want the cradle wet. Yeah, it's a problem, dude. You better run down, find the shut-off valve for the water before it's too late. Get some water damage in there. Never do any home improvement projects again. EV drivers, when they see an open charging port. Yeah. It's a miracle, right? EV drivers. I know some of you watch this channel. Those of you that haven't left yet, because some people they left crying because they don't like EV driver jokes. Even though every other car, Ford, Chevy, we make fun of everything. Subaru. None of those people show up crying. Just the EV drivers. I have to say that. Just for those of you that are out there. This is funny because it's probably true, especially if you live in a city. Show up and try to get an EV charge. There's videos out in California, people just in long lines waiting to get a charge.
Hi, I'm here to pick up my dry cleaning. Number is B6.
Ah, yes, the white shirt.
Yes, thank you. What do I owe you?
Disney. You know, maybe that we're past this. If again, the pendulum feels like it's swinging back to sanity. Maybe we're past this madness at Disney too, hopefully. I don't need no stinking list. I'll remember what I need right when I walk in the store. We just went over this dude, Mitch McConnell. How is he still in Congress? He's not in good shape. Not in good shape at all. Guys, before haircut, somewhere between haircuts, after haircuts. I can't explain it, but boys, you know what I'm talking about here. You understand this meme. This is so true. Yeah, it's a vicious cycle. What do you call the recreational activity of driving onto a frozen lake and spinning in circles with your car? Doing donuts, whipping shitties, yeah. You drive on frozen lakes? You can do this in the parking lot too. That is what we call it. I don't know why, but it's just that ever since we grew up, that's just what we called it. When HR reaches out to inform you, it's that time of year again for DEI training.
No.
That's what you say. Be Tom Cruise. No. I already said this. Don't even acknowledge it. Send it right to the junk mail in your inbox. Your work email. Delete it. Don't do it. Waste of time. You got work to do. You said goodbye Bitcoin. I said goodbye Bitcoin. Dad, I've been saying that for like 5 years. You guys know that. A lot of people laugh and ha ha ha. Yeah, I mean, things are looking pretty good over the last 4 or 5 years. So we'll just leave it at that. The Bass Pro employee listing off the tackle you'll need for night fishing in Chicago.
AK-47, 44 Magnum, automatic weapons, night scope. There's a compound bow and a machete with a red handle.
Where the hell are you fishing in Chicago? The river? The lake? Like the big lake? I don't know. I don't know why you'd want to fish at night in Chicago. But yes, if you do go fishing at night in Chicago, you will need some protection. It just is what it is. It's not even... It's the fact. When the apprentice leaves his boots laying around the shop. That's good. Maybe he needs new boots. Native. Northerner. Yeah. It's true. It was just like negative 20 here for a couple days straight. It sucked. It was awful. And this is like the why do I live here time of year for Minnesotans, and we'll throw Michigan in there, Wisconsin, North Dakota. It's like, why do we live here? Especially Minnesota, because you're like, oh, we pay these super high taxes. We have these super insane politicians, and we have this insane weather. Why do we live here? Sincerely. Residents of Los Angeles on their way to vote for the same incompetent politicians during the next election cycle that continue to destroy their city.
20 booked near where I live, near Clownsville.
Yeah, dude who's been doing this for 32 years. Full-time professional. Rated by One Family Magazine, #1 clown, 9 straight years.
#1 clown, 9 straight years. It's the same thing over and over. Oh, they promised to solve homelessness 15 years ago, and we paid all these taxes, and then homelessness got worse. And it's like, wait a minute. Maybe they never even planned on solving that. They just wanted your vote and your money. So those same people are going to vote for the same thing every time. I'm specifically talking about you, California. What are you guys doing? What's the first thing that comes to mind when you see this fridge? Have we done this one before? I wonder what I said before, but I'm going to say clogged arteries, holy sodium, holy sugar. RFK would hate this. Don't eat any of this crap. That's what I would say. Maybe the cheese. Even the cheese, though, they got... Yeah, is there one healthy thing in this? Like, legitimately? Maybe that yogurt on the bottom right? We eat that yogurt. Oh, you know what? Look at that cereal, though. We have some of that cereal. It's pretty good. Me hyping myself up to go outside and have social interaction.
I don't want to do that, but I have to. You understand? Hey, rules are rules. Rules, dude. You gotta...
I don't want to do that. Yeah, you gotta. Especially you, man. You know, arguably the best Magic the Gathering player on Earth. He's got to go to these tournaments and stuff. So all I asked was for him to get it in the water. Yeah, go get the backhoe. Gotta flip that bad boy over. What'd you do? He delivered. He got it in the water. Not the best idea. Like, if that's what you paid him for, though, he did his job. First time going down the hill in snow.
Oh my God.
Oh, getting some speed. Oh, that's a hill. Oh, that's a big hill. Bail. Oh. Oh, is he okay? Okay, you're very lucky, dude. You are lucky. You really want to get some speed, put some WD-40 on that bad boy? On that Oscar? Oh, hell. How my house looks right after spending the whole afternoon doing a deep clean, but I have toddlers. Oh, yeah. I mean, I hate to say it. This is very, very representative of what it's like having toddlers. You know, you pick up dishes or whatever. You clean, you vacuum. Pick up the toys. Everything just, next thing you know, the tornadoes come out and everything's right where it was. So it's like, why even clean? I mean, that goes through your head. Like, should I just not even clean for like the next 4 or 5 years while these toddlers exist and, you know, till they grow up? All the world's a stage and men and women are only actors.
I scream, you scream, you know the rest.
I scream, you scream, you know the rest. I scream, you scream, you know the rest. Well, I scream, you scream, you know the rest. I scream, you scream, well, you know the rest.
I scream, you scream, well, you know the rest.
I scream, you scream, we all, well, you know the rest.
Got it. I scream, you scream, you know the rest. I scream, you scream, we all know the rest. I scream, you scream, you know the rest.
I scream, you scream, well, you know the rest.
I scream, you scream, you know the rest.
Mike Myers says, yeah, baby.
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 Mike Myers says, yeah, baby. Mike Myers says, yeah, baby. Mike Myers says, yeah, baby.
Mike Myers says, yeah, baby.
Mike Myers says, yeah, baby.
Mike Myers says, yeah, baby.
Mike Myers says, yeah, baby. Mike Myers.
A child's happiness is priceless, especially on a birthday.
A child's happiness is priceless, especially.
Very weird how all these local places, they're all saying the same stuff. You know? There is a very weird thing too. There's the other clip, very viral clip that has been shown in many different places. Someone went around and started like copyright claiming that, which is kind of weird. It's almost like they're trying to get it taken down. I don't know what's going on there.
Veterans organizations. Idiots.